For my graduation, my mom and brother kept saying, "We've got something special planned for the big day." But they never showed up. Instead, they posted pictures from a beach resort with the caption, "She'll understand." I didn't say a word. But after I shared a photo with my dad's side of the family, I got over 200 messages. Hi Reddit. I'm 22 female, and up until recently I really believed that if I kept my head down, worked hard, and stayed out of trouble, maybe, just maybe, my family would finally treat me the way they always treated my brother. This story is about my college graduation. But honestly, it started way before that. I grew up in a small town that looked perfect on the outside. Quiet streets, neat lawns, polite neighbors. But inside our house, it always felt like we were walking on eggshells. My mom, Celine, had this gift for putting on a flawless front in public. At school events or church, she was warm, involved, even charming. But at home, things were completely different. She didn't yell. She didn't throw things. Her way was quieter, cut deeper. She'd guilt you until you believed everything was your fault, even when you were just a kid trying to figure out why nothing you did was ever good enough. And then there was Levi, my older brother by 2 years. In her eyes, he could do no wrong. He got C's, skipped classes, came home late without a word. Celine always had a reason ready. He's just stressed, or he's figuring things out. But if I got home 10 minutes late from the library, I was careless, selfish. I didn't respect her peace of mind. So I spent my entire teenage life chasing praise that never came, straight A's, perfect attendance, weekend volunteering, part-time jobs. None of it ever seemed to register. Celine would nod vaguely when I told her good news, sometimes just say, "That's nice." But when Levi said he might start a YouTube channel or had a new business idea he'd never follow through on, she lit up like it was the best thing she'd ever heard. Still, I kept thinking that once I got into college, things would change. I got accepted to a good state university with a full academic scholarship. When I left for school, I felt a weird mix of relief and guilt. During that first semester, Celine rarely reached out. Just the occasional text about bills or asking if I needed money. I didn't. I had 2 part-time jobs and lived on a tight budget, but I was managing. I didn't come home much during those 4 years, and honestly, I usually regretted it when I did. One time I mentioned something my dad had said during one of our rare calls. Not even anything dramatic, and Celine immediately changed the subject and walked out of the room. Levi told me I needed to be more grateful. "You don't know what Mom went through after he left," he said. "She stayed for us." But it never felt like she stayed for me. I always felt like I was just extra. There but not seen. Still, when my senior year came around, I decided I wanted them at my graduation. I don't really know why. Maybe I just hoped that after everything they'd finally see me, not as the kid who followed rules and stayed quiet, but as someone worth showing up for. I wasn't expecting big deal. No party, no balloons, not even a fancy dinner. I just wanted to see them in the crowd. About 3 weeks before graduation, Celine started dropping hints. It was subtle at first. During one of our rare phone calls, she said, "Don't make too many plans after the ceremony. Levi and I have something special planned for you." I remember freezing, phone pressed to my ear, staring up at the ceiling in my tiny apartment. Something special? That didn't sound like her, at least not for me. "What kind of special?" I asked. "You'll see," she said in this sing-song voice. "We wanted to do something a little different. You've worked so hard work, and we're proud of you." That word, proud, hit me in a weird way. It was like hearing a childhood song you hadn't heard in years. I wanted to believe it. I held on to it, even though something in me said to be careful. I let myself hope. Levi didn't help either. A few days later, he texted out of the blue, "Don't plan anything after graduation. Just trust us, it's gonna be big." I asked what he meant, and all I got was a winking emoji. Not exactly reassuring. Still, I clung to the hope that maybe this time they actually meant it. The week before graduation, Celine called 3 times, which was more than all semester combined. Each time she ended the call with something like, "Just wait. You're going to love it. We can't wait to see your face." I started imagining the possibilities. Maybe a small dinner. Maybe some extended family I hadn't seen in years. Maybe they'd finally say the words I'd wanted to hear since I was a kid who noticed I'd never been the favorite. The night before graduation, my dad flew in. That's a story of its own. He left when I was 9 and we didn't talk for years. But during my sophomore year he reached out. I was cautious, but over time we started to rebuild. He's not perfect and there's still a lot we don't talk about, but at least he's trying. More than I can say for the rest. He and his wife, Kendra, who's actually really nice, booked a hotel close to campus. We had dinner at a quiet spot and talked about the ceremony. He seemed nervous, like he didn't know if he'd be welcome. I tried to ease his nerves. Mom and Levi say they've got something planned, I told him, stirring my tea. So I'm guessing they'll show up and pull off this big surprise. He raised an eyebrow, paused, then asked carefully, "Did they tell you what it is?" "Nope. Just said it was special." "And to trust them?" He looked down at his plate, thought for a second, then nodded. "All right. I'll be there." Third row, left side. The next morning I got up early. I'd laid my outfit out the night before, triple-checked the time and location of the ceremony. I did my makeup slowly, carefully. I wanted to feel like someone worth celebrating. At 8:14 a.m. a message popped up from my mom. Something came up. "We'll explain later. You're going to be amazing. Love you." I just stared at it. Stared like maybe a second message would follow. "Just kidding. We're already on campus." But nothing came. I checked the time again. Nope, I hadn't read it wrong. No calls. No voicemails. Just that one message, short and final. My hands went cold. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my cap and gown. I hadn't even put on my shoes. It felt like the air had left the room. I didn't cry, at least not yet. I just froze. Kendra knocked on the door gently. "You ready, Hannah?" she asked. I took a breath and stood up. "Yeah. Just need my shoes." She didn't ask if I was okay. I think she could tell. Her eyes lingered on me a second longer than usual, like she wanted to say something. Maybe comfort. Maybe just acknowledgement. But she didn't push. The drive to campus was quiet. My dad drove. He made a few casual comments about the weather, the traffic, how big the crowd might be. I nodded along, but my head was somewhere else entirely. Kept checking my phone. Still nothing from Levi. No explanation. No apology. We got there early and found parking easily. Other families were already pouring in. Dads in tight suits, moms carrying bouquets, little siblings waving homemade signs. Everywhere I looked, people were laughing, hugging, snapping photos in front of the campus fountain. It was noisy, joyful, full. Everything around me was moving, but inside I felt completely still. The graduates were supposed to line up behind the auditorium, so I gave my dad and Kendra a quick hug and joined the others. My friends were there, Kayla, Jonah, and a few classmates from business ethics. Kayla ran up and hugged me tight. "You look amazing," she said, eyes lighting up. "Is your mom here yet?" I froze for half a second, then forced a smile. "She's running late, but she said she's coming." Kayla didn't catch on, thankfully. She just smiled and turned to adjust her tassel. Then the line started moving. We filed in row by row to that familiar graduation music I'd heard 1,000 times in movies, but never in real life. The lights were blinding. The stage stretched out ahead of us and the audience. That hit me hardest. I scanned the crowd without even thinking. There were so many people, so many faces blending together in applause and camera flashes. I spotted Kendra first, waving, smiling brightly. My dad stood next to her in a gray blazer, looking slightly out of place but smiling too. He waved carefully like he didn't want to be too obvious. No sign of Celine. No Levi. The ceremony itself went by in a haze. Names were called. People cheered. A few rogue air horns and cowbells cut through the seriousness. When they called my name, I walked across the stage, shook the dean's hand, and tried to smile for the photographer. Felt like I was moving through fog. Outside, after the ceremony, my dad pulled me into a long hug. The longest one I could remember getting from him. I let myself melt into it just for a moment. Kendra snapped photos and laughed when she had to make my dad redo one because he blinked. We had lunch at a small, cozy spot near campus. The kind with creaky wooden floors and mismatched chairs. The menu was simple. Sandwiches, soups, fresh lemonade. It felt homey, like the kind of place that knew exactly what it was. Halfway through the meal, I checked my phone again, not expecting anything. But I had a bunch of notifications. Instagram, Facebook, even messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Confused, I opened Instagram first. The post at the top of my feed made my stomach drop. There they were, Celine and Levi, lounging in beach chairs, sunglasses on, the ocean behind them. Her feet were tucked in the white sand. Levi wore his usual smug grin, like he'd just told a joke only he thought was funny. They looked completely relaxed. No urgency, no apology. The caption read, "Sometimes the best gift is peace. She'll understand." I didn't say anything. Didn't move. My hands just stayed wrapped around my phone. The restaurant noise blurred around me. I didn't even feel angry yet. Just hollow. My dad must have noticed something shift in my face because he paused mid-bite. "You okay?" he asked softly. I locked my phone and smiled like nothing happened. "Yeah. Just tired." He gave me a look, half concerned, half knowing, but didn't push. I was thankful for that. I didn't post anything right away. I didn't even know what to say. But later that night, after I took off my cap and gown and washed off the makeup, I sat on my bed and opened the photo Kendra had taken. Me and my dad outside the restaurant. I was holding my diploma folder. He had his arm around me. We were both smiling. There was something honest in it. Quietly beautiful. So I posted it. No tags, no long caption. Just, grateful for the people who show up. I didn't think much of it. I set my phone down and went to brush my teeth. When I came back, there were already a dozen comments. An hour later, over 60 messages. By morning, it was more than 200. Some were from extended family I hadn't heard from in forever. Others were old friends, classmates, even one of Levi's high school friends I barely knew. Everyone had something to say. And then one comment stood out. It was from Celine's account. "We were doing what we thought was doing our best. You didn't need to put this out there." I read it once, then again. My chest started to tighten, not from sadness but something heavier, sharper. Like the weight of years pressing down all at once. That's when another notification popped up, this time from Levi. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at it, my thumb hovering over the screen like the message might burn me if I touched it. I tried to prepare myself for whatever version of the truth he thought I could handle. Maybe he'd say it was a last-minute thing. Maybe he'd blame it all on Celine. Or maybe, and this was the one that scared me the most, he'd pretend like it wasn't even a big deal. Like I was the one making too much out of it. Eventually I tapped it open. "Hey, don't blow this out of proportion. Mom and I needed a break. We figured you'd be with Dad anyway. You didn't sound all that excited when we mentioned we had plans. It's not like we promised anything. You always take things way too personal." I sat still after reading that. Not crying. Not angry. Just still. It was like a switch flipped. His message was so casual, so dismissive. Like graduation was just another day he could skip if the beach sounded better. Then I started thinking about every hour I spent studying late at the library, every shift I picked up, every time I stretched $20 to get through the week when the meal plan ran out. All that work. Not just for a degree but for them. For some kind of approval I'd never get. And I thought again about that caption, "She'll understand." Well, I wouldn't. That was the moment I stopped hoping they'd change. I didn't have a clear plan yet, but I knew I couldn't let this get swept under the rug like everything else. I wasn't looking to start a fight. I wasn't interested in revenge. I just wanted the truth. And if they wouldn't give it to me, I'd find it myself. So I started digging. The first thing I did was go through the messages people had sent after I posted the photo. Most were kind, people saying they were proud, that I deserved better. But a few stood out for different reasons. One was from my Aunt Lionel, my mom's younger sister. We hadn't talked much since I left for college. She lived a few towns away and always seemed kind, though a little distant. Her message was short. "If you ever want to know what really happened with your dad, call me." That hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't thought much about the divorce in years. Celine always said Dad left when I was 9 because he couldn't handle responsibility. Levi repeated it enough that it became family fact. I waited a full day before calling. She picked up on the third ring. "I was hoping you would," she said. "We talked for 2 hours. I'm not going to share everything she told me, not yet. I'm still processing a lot of it. But what she revealed changed everything I thought I knew. About Dad, about Celine, about the money that vanished during my senior year of high school. About why Celine never wanted me staying with Dad on weekends, even though the court said I could. When we hung up, I just sat there on the floor staring at my phone. Then I started writing. Not a rant. Not a dramatic post or public takedown. Just my side of things, the story I'd never been allowed to tell. At first it was a private letter. Then it became a document. Then a collection. Memories, screenshots, photos, texts, all the things I'd ignored or shoved aside over the years. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't felt around my family in years. Control. A week passed. I didn't reply to Celine's comment. I didn't answer Levi's follow-up either. Seriously? You're going to make this a whole thing over one day? I let the silence hang. And I think that silence rattled them more than anything I could have said, because that's when the calls started. First Celine. Then Levi. Then a number I didn't recognize, which turned out to be my Uncle Grant. They all said the same thing in different ways. You're overreacting. This isn't how family handles things. You're making a big deal out of nothing. You need to move on. And then Celine sent a message that hit different. I hope you're not planning to turn people against us. That wouldn't be very mature, would it? I read that text and for the first time I didn't feel confused or small or sad. I felt something else. Power. Not spite. Not revenge. Just the knowledge that I finally had something they hadn't counted on. Evidence. Perspective. Support. While they'd spent years curating their version of events, carefully shaped stories and quiet manipulations, I'd been taking mental notes. I'd been observing, documenting, remembering. And now I wasn't alone anymore. There were more people watching than they realized. The turning point came when Celine posted again. I wasn't expecting it. It had been a few weeks of silence, and part of me had hoped she'd finally taken a step back to reflect. But late one night there it was. A new photo, her and Levi lounging on a yacht, sunglasses on, arms tossed over the side like life had never been better. But it was the caption that landed like a punch. Some things are too important to sacrifice for drama. We're doing what's best for us. I stared at it for a long time. And then I realized I was done. This wasn't about a missed graduation anymore. It was about the years of being overlooked, of having my feelings dismissed for the sake of their image. It was about how I was only ever considered when it was convenient for them. That night I made a decision. I was going to share the truth, start to finish. The next day I opened my laptop and started pulling everything together. Photos. Screenshots. Texts. Bank statements from the past few years showing transfers between my mom and Levi. Emails where Celine made it clear how disappointed she was that I didn't follow the path she laid out for me. I even included the call. From Aunt Lyanna. The one where she told me what really happened during the divorce. That Dad didn't walk away. That he was pushed out. That Celine chose control over connection. Over the next few days I added more. Messages from friends who had quietly witnessed how Levi would belittle me when no one was around. Notes about the times Mom bailed on plans with me to support Levi's latest venture. It wasn't about revenge. I wasn't interested in playing dirty. I just wanted the truth to be seen. When I finished I wrote a post. It wasn't a public takedown. I didn't blast it to the world. I sent it privately, to close friends, family, the people who had reached out after graduation. It was my story. About how I had spent years feeling invisible. About how the day I should have felt celebrated had been treated like an afterthought. About how I wasn't waiting for them to recognize my worth anymore. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. Anyone who knew me understood who I was talking about. And within hours the responses started flooding in. People were stunned. Some were angry. But more than anything they were supportive. I had cracked something open. Friends I thought were just classmates told me they'd had no idea what I was dealing with. Old teachers messaged me saying they'd always respected my drive but never knew what was going on behind the scenes. And then my phone rang. It was Aunt Lyanna. You did the right thing, my aunt said. I'm not sure I could have done it myself, but you found your voice again. The hardest part came when Levi finally called. I'd ignored his earlier messages but this time I picked up. I knew what it meant to answer. I was opening a door I wasn't sure I wanted open. What the hell is wrong with you? He snapped. His voice was tight, almost panicked. You didn't need to blast our personal stuff like that. You've turned this into something it's not. I told you, we're just doing what's best for us. Why can't you just let it go? I didn't let him finish. No, you don't get it, I said, calm but firm. This wasn't about causing drama. It was about me. And you've never cared about that. You've always made sure you and Mom came first no matter how it affected me. As long as your life was easier, mine didn't matter. There was silence. Then I heard him let out a breath. Fine, he said, quieter now. I don't know what you want from me. But I'm not going to apologize for doing what I needed to do. And just like that I knew I was done. No more trying. No more pretending. No more hoping they'd finally see me. I hung up, not with relief but with something clearer. Closure. Not long after, Celine tried calling twice. I didn't answer. On the third attempt she sent a long message, longer than anything she'd ever written me. Her tone had changed. She apologized. Said maybe she'd been wrong to cut me out, to put her relationship with Levi above everything else. She admitted I'd been hurt. But even then she didn't fully take responsibility. She framed it as trying to move on and hoped I'd do the same. I left the message unread for days. Then my dad called. He hadn't been involved in any of the back and forth, but I could hear something in his voice. Concern. Love. Uncertainty. He asked how I was doing and told me, gently, firmly, that he was proud of me. At first I didn't say much. But eventually I told him everything. All of it. The lies. The manipulation. How I had spent so much of my life chasing their approval just to feel like I mattered. He didn't interrupt. Just listened. And when I was done he said something simple but powerful. I'll always be here. No matter what happens with them, I'm not going anywhere. And for the first time in a very long time I believed him. Things didn't magically get better after that. Celine never showed up with some heartfelt apology. Levi didn't suddenly change. But something in me shifted. I didn't feel small anymore. Or desperate. Or like I needed them to see me to feel seen. I had made it on my own. Academically. Emotionally. I had put in the work. I had grown. The messages from them slowed down. A few vague texts from Celine. Random one-liners from Levi. But I stopped looking at my phone hoping. I stopped waiting. Instead I turned toward what was ahead. I had a job lined up. A move planned. A whole new city waiting for me. A blank slate. A new chapter, written entirely by me. And that's when I understood something I never had before. The best revenge isn't confrontation. It's building a life so full and authentic they're no longer the center of it. I didn't need their approval anymore. And for the first time I didn't want it.